Hey everybody, Mike Peluso here, founder of True Living. Thank you for tuning in this Friday. I'm going to be brief, I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to be gone here. I am coming in with velocity. So recently, in fact, as soon as last night, I received a message from a dear friend of mine. He's like, please reach out to me. I'm not doing so well. Now, by the time I actually got this message, it was way later than it was actually the following morning. So had I have seen it, I would have reached out to him immediately. But the message read, hey, listen, I'm not doing well, thinking about suicide, right? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to just be able to address some of this stuff head on. I think we've all been there. And you know, like, and I'm not just talking about suicide, right? So if you think about suicide or that whole idea of I'm going to end myself, that's think of that as like having followed down an idea, and now you're starting to agree with an idea, right? So what I want to do is I want to just hit this head on because it's not just that thought that we're talking about. We're talking about thought in general. There's a general theme when it comes to thoughts. And if you consider that that's just one thought and that ultimately you are creating thoughts all day long and that you're convincing yourself of shit all day long, and you take the case that what you experience in life are the thoughts that you convince yourself, whether or not they're on one end of the spectrum of, oh my gosh, why don't I just end my life? On the other end of the spectrum of like, my life is incredible. Either way, you're creating your reality through your thoughts, and the thoughts that you agree with become your reality. So I want to dissect this a little bit together. So if any of you guys are struggling with anything, feel free to throw it in the chat. If you are feeling really good about something inside of your life, feel free to throw it in the chat. I'm going to check it out, and we're going to dive right in. And like I said, we're going to do this with velocity. So if you think about experience, one of my favorite symbols is the Tao. It's the Tai Chi symbol. It represents the seed of one living in the seed of the other. It's the yin yang. It's got the black side there and the white side. And in the white side, you have a dot. And in the black side, you have a dot. And what it represents is the balance or polarity between two sides, right? So when I say you have so much potential, you can hear that as Mike really believes in me, or you can hear that as I'm not good enough right now. Now, when I say you have so much potential, you're going to naturally migrate towards a listening of one direction or the other based off of your context or the way in which the situation is occurring to you. In other words, maybe you just got off of a call with somebody and it was really serious. And I say, hey, listen, guys, you have so much potential. And through that filter, you're now listening to me and you're saying, oh, man, life is tough. I've got some room to improve. And there's that kind of negative connotation or note to the statement. Maybe you just got done with like an incredible call. You just closed a deal and you hear, I have so much potential. And you're like, yeah, man, Mike really believes in me. I can do anything I want. You walk away and you don't think anything of it. Either way, what we're constantly doing is we're constantly trying to bucket our experience into one of those two categories. I like to say you're either being a victim or a visionary, and you can't be both. You're either a visionary or a victim, and you can't be both. In that same way, you're either creating the present moment as being perfect, whole, and complete, or you're creating the present moment as having a deficit. And we see this all the time. One of the biggest paradoxes that we see is the healer paradox that we talk about, which is like, oh, hey, I'm here to help you, and I'm going to provide value to you. And in that, and the shadow of that is now you need help. So even things as simple as contribution have this shadow of, hey, I want to give you something. It implies that you need me to give it to you sometimes, not always, right? So why is this so important? And why does this really matter? When you're having, I want you to think of your brain like Google, okay? And when you ask yourself a question, your brain, being the greatest goal-achieving machine on earth, gives the answer. For example, I'd like you to think of a car. Now, what color is the car that you're thinking? And now consider that what I used was language. I'd like you to think of a car. You thought of a car, and what showed up was an image. It was literally an image. And we, using language, pulled forth an idea. In that same way, when you ask yourself a question and you type in a question in language into that search bar, your brain is going to pull up a filter that you're then going to look at the world through. So your filter of the car was whatever image and whatever color car you just pulled up. Now, that's not the color car that I'm thinking of, nor is that the word car. They're separate. It's your past experience, your past filter that you pull up. Now, what happens in that same way is that each one of those images has an emotional imprint. Some of you could have pulled up like a Ferrari. For me, when I think of a car, I think of a Ferrari. Man, I love just cracking that puppy back. Even better, a motorcycle. Love that, right? So if you were to say, hey, Mike, how are you doing right now? I could pull up a filter that's unique to how I'm interpreting the situation. And everybody's got their own filter. So what happens is it takes time for when every filter that comes up has a hormonal residue that goes to it. And we call those hormones feelings. They're feelings. And it takes a little bit of time for the brain to clear out the feelings. So oftentimes we have more thoughts that are in line with those feelings. So for example, a moment ago, we started talking about cars. And then I said, ooh, a motorcycle. Well, I was having the feeling of a car. Then I instantly jumped to motorcycle because the two are somewhat closely related. And the emotional imprint of a car leads me down the bunny trail of riding on a vehicle and then on a motorcycle. In the same way, if I were to say, how are you doing? And you're not feeling that great, you're going to start giving me reasons why you're not feeling that great. And you'll start ultimately building this snowball effect. And what happens then is you start looking at your life through this lens. And since the brain takes time for emotions to clear out, and since your brain can't tell the difference between a vision and a memory, you're actually creating the idea of your life through the hormonal filter that you're experiencing. And now the idea of your life is this deficit, is this issue. And then if we have lots of those thoughts and then we agree with those thoughts, that becomes the idea or the construct of reality. The same way that when somebody once said, hey, this is a car, and you agreed with that label of car, when you have a thought like my life is crazy, or I should end my life, or I just want to get out of here, or things are always going to be this way, and you agree with that thought, you've now embraced it as a belief, and it becomes part of the filter that you look at the world through, because that filter is all of the agreements or all of your notions of truth about reality. But here's the thing. Right now, in the present moment, there's a void that's here. It's perfect, whole, and complete by my definition, but it's empty. And if you're really present with it, like really open and conscious, you can become aware of every thought and those thoughts having both sides at the same time. That when you have the thought of, man, there's so much potential, you both have you are in the shadow of, or I want to do something different. You're in one moment creating a direction for your intention of your life, and the shadow of that is you're also implying that right now is at some deficit, as if at the same time. In other words, you're ideaing a future at the deficit of the now. So we go back to our friend who's there, and he's saying, I just want to end it, right? So what we're doing at that point is we're building evidence for our emotional state. And we're literally creating more ideas that are in line with our emotion. And maybe, just maybe, there's just needs to be a little bit of time for those emotions to clear out. Or maybe what we need to do is consider the other side of our thinking. So just consider the other side. Because when I say you have so much potential, on one side, that can be perceived as negative, but on the other side, it can be perceived as positive. And if you were to take that person and break it all the way down to, like, why are you saying what you're saying? Like, what do you mean literally? Like, what is the statement that is your evidence for why you would want to end it all? They're going to have a straight up false notion of truth, a limiting belief. And if you can get to the other side of that, you're going to find something that's completely transformational, because that limiting belief was written in language. It isn't in the present moment. The present moment is void of ideas. It's void of concepts. You bring those ideas and concepts into the present moment as a filter, but that filter is an abstract view of the beauty that's here, not the actual beauty, right? The idea of a car is not the actual car. And so if you then consider the other side, you're going to find that you can then access unlimited potential by constantly flipping your beliefs at all times. Now, one of the things that shows up here that I want to speak directly into are the concerns that show up when we're in that state of uncertainty. Because if you really embrace what I'm saying, it'll bring you to a space where there are no thoughts and you're in a state of uncertainty. There's no certainty about the future. You really can't believe the idea of your past, because when you think of an idea, you actually have now altered it. Your idea of a car now has in some way slightly been altered by virtue of this conversation and me using the car as an example. You've actually, that idea, we've now somewhat altered. We've taken our present moment and the feelings that you have, and we've created a neurosynaptic connection to that idea. We now have changed the car, or the folder that is the car, because this conversation is now included in that folder, and it's included in that folder because we used the label car, not because there's actually been a car here at all, right? So what happens is there's something that's called a locus of control. Locus of control is the best way to experience it. It's whether or not you foundationally are generating energy into a moment, or if you foundationally are receiving energy from the moment. People that are generating have the ability to define their life. People that are receiving are looking for a sense of external truth. They're like two sides of the yin yang, right? For example, someone that's generating the experience in their life is going to say, man, look what I created. Where someone that's receiving energy is going to say, look at how lucky I am. Someone that's generating energy is going to say, this is my truth. Where someone that's receiving energy is going to say, this is the truth. A sense of certainty coming from outside in, from inside out versus outside in. And there's no right and wrong about it, but everyone migrates towards that. What I've found is that when we're in a state of uncertainty, depending on which direction you naturally migrate is how you're perceiving that state of uncertainty. For example, somebody that finds their truth, their sense of truth externally, they're going to feel really upset when their environment seems chaotic. Where someone that finds their truth internally and brings it outward is going to feel very comfortable when the environment seems chaotic, because that environment that seems chaotic is actually free because they're not concerned about it. So in that same way, when people are feeling down or they're feeling like, it's like, why do we have these thoughts? What we want to do is acknowledge and honor that we're probably not going to solve it within the domain of the concept of the thought at all. That maybe what we're experiencing is one side of something that we've created, and maybe the opportunity to resolve the entire creation is there. And maybe we can resolve it by considering the other side as being equally as valid, whether or not you're saying, in other words, you have so much potential. Since both sides are valid and neither one give us a definitive direction in this present moment, maybe it brings us right back here. And if you're right back here, I would say that you're in a state of being perfect, whole, and complete. And that's what we're looking to do. That's what we're looking to promote. And so hopefully you guys got some value out of that. You know, I sincerely, don't convince yourself of something that isn't a reality. And because it's all good, we all get through it. We're all going through it together. And if you ever catch yourself feeling that way, consider the other side. and you'll instantly resolve it. So thank you guys for letting me go live with this. I'm going to package this up and I'm going to send it to my buddy. And I love you all. Hopefully that was valuable for you. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Michael Peluso, I'm the founder of True Living, holistic health practitioner, entrepreneurial coach, and excited to serve you. All right. Have a great day. Bye for now. Happy Friday.